Significant Historic Women on History Talk, where we explore the people, places, and events that shaped our community. History Talk premieres live every Thursday at 10 a.m. on KFYR+. Visit kfyrplus.com for streaming information. Linda Slaughter was one of Bismarck's most important pioneers, establishing its first school and advocating women's rights, pushing the envelope as postmistress, an attorney, and becoming the first woman in the United States to vote for a presidential candidate at a national convention. Slaughter was born Melinda Louise Orfel on February 1st, 1843, in Candies, Ohio. She was educated at Oberlin College before relocating to Kentucky and Tennessee as a missionary, overseeing schools and churches for freed slaves. Linda met her future husband, Dr. Benjamin Franklin Slaughter, in 1868. He was an Army surgeon who was ordered to relocate to Dakota Territory's Fort Rice in 1871. The following year, the Slaughters settled in what is now Bismarck, after Dr. Slaughter was ordered to report at the newly established Camp Greeley, later called Camp Hancock. The pair arrived aboard the Ida Stockdale from Fort Rice on August 8, 1872. With her husband, Linda had 5 children, 3 of which, all daughters, survived to adulthood. The Slaughters are the great-grandparents of current North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, whose father, Joseph Boyd Burgum, was the son of their daughter, Jessamine. Linda Slaughter established Bismarck's first school, Sabbath School, a Presbyterian Sunday school, at Camp Hancock on August 24, 1872. She went on to establish Bismarck Academy the following year, 1873. The school was housed within the First Presbyterian Church, constructed that summer on the corner of 2nd Street and Thayer Avenue. Slaughter shared teaching duties with her sister, Adie Warfel. Among the first actions of the recently formed Burleigh County Commission that year was establishing Slaughter as superintendent, which she served until 1882. In 1876, Slaughter was appointed Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction for all of Dakota Territory. In that role, she helped create what later became the North Dakota Department of Public Instruction. Slaughter was Bismarck's first postmaster, or postmistress. The law had to be changed in 1874 to qualify her, a married woman, to hold that role. She took these duties very seriously, directly confronting General Custer when he tried to assert power and circumvent her. Needless to say, Slaughter won this conflict against Custer. Slaughter was a journalist, too. Her role as Washington correspondent for the Bismarck Tribune established important connections in the nation's capital. She became close friends with the historical figure Susan B. Anthony. As a prominent women's rights activist, Slaughter organized the local chapter for the Ladies Historical Society in 1889. She was also a founding member of the Daughters of the American Revolution and active in other female-focused organizations. In 1892, as a party delegate, Linda Slaughter was the first woman to vote for a presidential candidate at a national convention. She became a licensed attorney in Washington, D.C. in 1895. Linda Slaughter died in St. Cloud, Minnesota in 1911. Linda Slaughter's manifesto, Fortress to Farm, is one of the most detailed accounts of early local history, beginning with their life at Fort Rice and continuing to their relocation to what became Bismarck. In it, Slaughter commented on Bismarck's early life, including a shunning description of Bismarck's infamous murder gulch on 4th Street, where she stated, quote, "No respectable woman would ever walk down that street." Fannie Quain was North Dakota's first female doctor and acclaimed for her work against tuberculosis, establishing North Dakota's first sanitarium and championing quality medical training, particularly for women. Fannie was born in 1874 to local businessman and pharmacist John Dunn, one of Bismarck's first residents, who established North Dakota's first drugstore in Bismarck. Fannie first pursued teaching, graduating from the St. Cloud Normal School, now St. Cloud State University, with a degree in education. Despite a strong interest in medicine, pursuing a career in the field was prohibitive. Female doctors were very rare and publicly denounced. Financing medical school was also an obstacle. Undeterred, Fannie graduated from the University of Michigan Medical School in 1898. She interned in Minneapolis before returning home to Bismarck, where she became North Dakota's first female doctor. Fannie traveled throughout the state to provide medical care and was influential in establishing both the state's first baby clinic and the state's first sanitarium, San Haven, which opened in 1912 in the Turtle Mountains. Fannie was revolutionary in the fight against tuberculosis. Governor John Burke appointed Fannie as a delegate to the first International Congress on Tuberculosis. She was also a founder of the North Dakota Tuberculosis Association, now the American Lung Association of North Dakota. It was about this time that she discontinued practicing medicine and devoted efforts to the association, where she served in varying capacities, including twice as its vice president until her death in 1950. Additionally, Fannie served on the North Dakota State Board of Health from 1923 until 1933, where she was board president for some time. It was there that she championed local medical training, particularly for women. She also served as regional director for the Medical Women's National Association from 1933 to 1934. Fannie married Dr. Eric Quain in 1903, one of the co-founders of Q&R Clinic, which is now part of Sanford Health. The two met while both working at St. Alexius. They had 2 children. Fannie died on February 2, 1950. Sister Boniface was a longtime administrator of St. Alexius from 1892 until retiring in 1937, the same year of her death. She is credited with progressing St. Alexius from a frontier hospital into one of the nation's most respected healthcare facilities. Boniface was born on September 7, 1854 in Benton, Wisconsin, to Mr. and Mrs. John Timmons. Most sources say her birth name was Agnes Timmons. However, one source says it was Mary Ann. After her father died, she relocated with her mother to St. Paul. She joined the Benedictine Sisters of St. Gertrude in Shakopee, Minnesota in February 1872 at the age of 17. It was there that she adopted the name Boniface, a German patron saint, despite that she herself was of Irish descent. She soon relocated with her covenant to St. Joseph, Minnesota. The Benedictine Sisters first influenced Bismarck in 1878, when 5 sisters arrived to establish St. Mary's Academy and Boarding School. The school housed 21 boarders and 80 students in 3 classrooms. 7 years later, in 1885, they established the first hospital in Dakota Territory, originally known as the Lamborn Hospital, housed inside the never-opened Lamborn Hotel, which was built by Alexander Mackenzie and Richard Mellon. The hospital soon became St. Alexius. They treated 65 patients during the hospital's first year, despite having no formal medical training, at a standard fee of $1 per day. Sister Boniface arrived in 1892 to take up administration of the hospital. She was instrumental in evolving it from a primitive, barely equipped frontier hospital into a well-funded, modern healthcare facility. It was not an easy feat, considering that a nationwide depression swept through the following year. Funding mostly came from loans given by local businessmen. She replaced the coal stoves with steam heat, installed telephones, and replaced hand bells with electric call bells. They installed 6 telephones at St. Alexius originally, and Sister Boniface convinced local physicians and druggists to have them installed as well. By 1914, St. Alexius was granted with a Class A rating by the American College of Surgeons. 1 year later, the first section of today's St. Alexius facility opened. Sister Boniface continued administering St. Alexius until 1937, when symptoms of heart disease prevented her from continuing in that capacity. In July of that year, she was put to bed after suffering a chill and slipped into a coma. She eventually came out of the coma and was described as possessing a strong mental clarity until her last breath in October 1937. In her death announcement, the Bismarck Tribune described her as, quote, witty, kindly, and strong. One might not think that a woman known as the Madam of a Brothel deserves recognition, but it was her other investments, her entrepreneurial efforts, and her generosity that deserves praise. Little Casino, whose aliases also included Ida Lewis and Elizabeth McClelland, was born in 1840 to David and Mary Jenkins. Her family, immigrants from Wales, resided in New York at the time. Her brother David was first to arrive in Dakota Territory, assigned to Fort Rice. McClelland had resided in Brainerd, Minnesota for a time, where she got her start in her questionable career before the city cracked down on such businesses. This forced her to relocate to Bismarck in mid-1873 to establish a successful resort, or brothel. She opened a new house in 1877 at 701 Front Avenue, then outside of city limits. She was arrested in Chicago in 1886 for attempting to abduct 2 local working girls. She remained operating until 1893, when foreclosure forced her out of business. She spent her last years on a farm south of Wilton, where she also owned and operated the Little Casino coal mine. She diversified her interests by becoming an original stakeholder in First National Bank of Bismarck in 1879. Some sources say it was the second bank in Bismarck. Other original stakeholders, whose names you might recognize, include Dr. Henry Porter, Asa Fisher, John McLean, John Yagan, and Mrs. W.B. Shaw. The first national bank building, constructed in 1883, was Bismarck's largest private building until it was destroyed in the 1898 fire. Its successor today is U.S. Bank. Little Casino was a generous woman. She financially contributed to both public and private causes. Specifically, she contributed $1,200 to the funding required to secure Bismarck as capital in 1883. That's equivalent to about $50,000 today. She often donated her wealth to charitable causes, sometimes privately without public recognition. It is said that she helped Danny Hannafin, a close friend, after his wealth evaporated. I invite you to check out my 2 Bismarck history books. They are available to purchase on Amazon and select local bookstores. Copies are also available at the Bismarck Public Library. Visit bismarckbook.com for more information. That was a look at some of the most significant historic local women. Is there a history topic you'd like to be featured? Email historytalk@kfyrtv.com. History Talk premieres exclusively Thursdays at 10 a.m. on KFYR+.